A blind little girl sat trembling in a silent courtroom, tears rolling down her cheeks, as the judge prepared to make a life-changing decision. Suddenly, the doors opened, and her loyal German shepherd walked in carrying something that would change everything. What happened next left everyone speechless. Before we start, make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. The courtroom was silent, heavy with tension, as a small blind girl sat on the wooden bench, clutching her white cane tightly against her chest. Her little hands trembled, and though she couldn't see the rows of people staring at her, she could feel their eyes like a weight pressing down. The faint murmurs in the room echoed in her mind, making her heart beat even faster. She tilted her head slightly, listening carefully to every sound: the distant shuffling of papers, the creak of the judge's chair, and the faint whispers of lawyers discussing her fate. The air smelled of polished wood and nervous anticipation. She blinked rapidly, holding back tears, wishing more than anything that her loyal German shepherd was by her side. The judge cleared his throat, and the deep, authoritative sound made her shiver. She could sense that something important was about to happen, something that would change her life forever. She squeezed the handle of her cane as if it could give her strength. All around her, strangers leaned forward, waiting to see the outcome. In that moment, the little girl had never felt more alone, until a sound from the courtroom doors would soon change everything. Just as the silence grew unbearable, the heavy wooden courtroom doors creaked open with a slow, echoing sound that made everyone turn their heads. The blind girl's heart skipped a beat. She couldn't see, but she felt the subtle shift in the room, the collective gasp, the murmurs spreading like ripples in water. Then she heard it, the soft but unmistakable clicking of claws on the polished floor. Her lips trembled. Could it be? Her loyal German shepherd, Max, was entering the room, his nails tapping against the ground in a rhythm she knew better than any lullaby. The faint jingle of his collar filled the silence, and with it came a wave of warmth she hadn't felt all day. The spectators leaned closer as Max trotted forward, holding something in his mouth. A folded piece of paper, smudged with red marks, swung gently as he approached. Whispers filled the courtroom, questioning what the dog was carrying and why he had come. The blind girl's hands shook as tears welled up behind her dark glasses. For the first time since she had entered the courtroom, she felt a surge of hope. Whatever Max was bringing, it could change everything. The judge raised an eyebrow, momentarily breaking the formal tension of the court. "Bailiff," he said, firmly, "retrieve whatever that dog has brought." Max hesitated for a brief moment, his soulful brown eyes scanning the room as if he knew the importance of the paper he carried. He took a few careful steps forward and gently released the folded sheet into the bailiff's hands. The courtroom, packed with people holding their breath, seemed to freeze in time. The bailiff opened the paper slowly, revealing what looked like a written confession. The words were scrawled hastily, and at the bottom was a smeared fingerprint that matched the prime suspect's bloody hand. Gasps filled the courtroom as whispers erupted among the audience. Even the judge leaned forward in disbelief. The blind girl clutched her white cane tightly, sensing the shift in the atmosphere. She didn't need to see the paper. The soft intakes of breath and murmured exclamations told her that Max had delivered something monumental. "Your Honor," the lawyer said with a tremor in his voice, This changes everything." Max sat proudly beside the girl, his chest rising with quiet dignity, as if he had always known the truth would find its way to the light. A hush fell over the courtroom, followed by a wave of murmurs as the weight of the revelation settled over everyone present. The judge tapped his gavel sharply, calling for order, but even he could not hide the astonishment in his eyes. The gallery leaned forward, eager to catch every word that followed. The defense attorney stood frozen, his papers trembling in his hands. He glanced at the blind girl, then at Max, as if the dog's quiet confidence had completely dismantled his case. Across the aisle, the prosecution rose with newfound energy, the evidence finally tipping the scales in their favor. Meanwhile, the little girl tilted her head toward the sound of Max's soft panting. A tear slid down her cheek, but this time, it wasn't from fear, it was hope. She whispered, almost too quietly for anyone else to hear, Good boy. Max, you did it. The judge cleared his throat, his voice carrying the weight of the moment. If this document is authenticated, it could exonerate this child's guardian entirely, he said gravely. Max lowered himself onto the floor, his head resting gently on the girl's shoes, as if he understood that his job here was almost done. But the fight wasn't over yet. Just as the courtroom began to settle, a sudden commotion erupted near the entrance. A man stumbled in, his clothes disheveled, his face pale with guilt. All eyes turned toward him as the bailiff moved swiftly to block his path. The man's trembling hands rose into the air. I need to confess, he stammered, his voice cracking under the weight of his words. It wasn't her. It was me. I left that note. I tried to frame them. Gasps rippled through the courtroom, and the blind girl's breath caught in her throat. She couldn't see the man, but she felt the shift in the room, the sharp intake of air, the murmured disbelief. Max lifted his head and let out a single, low bark, as if confirming the truth. The judge leaned forward, his voice stern. State your name and your involvement. This court will hear everything. The man's confession poured out like a flood. He described how greed and fear drove his betrayal, how he planted evidence to escape his own crimes. The note Max retrieved was the key that unraveled his lies. In that moment, everyone understood. The dog had not only saved the girl, he had exposed a human heart buried in guilt. The courtroom sat in stunned silence, the weight of the man's confession sinking in, like a stone in water. The judge adjusted his glasses and leaned forward, his gaze moving from the trembling man to the blind girl and her loyal dog. The air felt heavy with anticipation. Bailiff, the judge ordered calmly, take this man into custody. The sound of handcuffs clicking echoed through the room, and the gallery erupted in murmurs once again. The man bowed his head in defeat, his betrayal now laid bare for all to see. The prosecutor rose to address the court, voice steady but laced with emotion. Your Honor, the evidence, combined with this confession, leaves no doubt that the child and her guardian are innocent. The judge nodded slowly, then turned toward the little girl. You are free, he declared solemnly. The girl's lips trembled as she clutched Max's fur, her unseeing eyes filling with tears of joy. Max wagged his tail and nudged her gently, sensing the shift from fear to relief. Even the stern bailiff allowed himself a small smile at the sight of their bond. In that moment, the courtroom was no longer just a place of law. It had become a place of redemption and hope. As the gavel struck for the final time, the tension in the courtroom melted into a wave of relief. The blind girl felt her way forward, guided by Max's gentle nudge. Her small hands brushed against his fur, and she sank to her knees, hugging him tightly. The dog leaned into her embrace, his tail thumping softly on the polished floor, as if he understood that they had finally won their freedom. The judge, now standing, watched the touching scene with softened eyes. Young lady, he said warmly, you and your friend are extraordinary. You both reminded this court of the power of truth and loyalty. The gallery erupted in applause, and several people were wiping away tears, even the reporters capturing. The moment seemed caught up in the emotional tide. Outside the courthouse, the sun shone brightly, as if nature itself was celebrating the new beginning. The girl turned her face toward the warmth and whispered, We're free, Max. We're really free. The German shepherd barked once, joyfully, his voice echoing like a victory wide at in that instant. She knew their bond was unbreakable. Together, they had faced fear, betrayal, and injustice, and triumphed. Their story had not just ended, it had only just begun.